On the stage screen, the Bible verse showed, "One name for Satan is the accuser of the brethren." The well-dressed televangelist leaned forward as if he were really worried. Renner told the people watching him on the Daystar Television Network, "This is the enemy's #1 weapon against the church." What viewers didn't know was that this Bible verse had become the network's favorite way to attack anyone who dared to question the leadership of the Lamb family. People who used to work for or with the Christian media company have been telling strangely similar stories for years. They weren't given a chance to talk about their worries about things like financial transparency, harassment at work, or family problems. They were called attackers, like Satan's today, who are targeting God's chosen ones. It's become so easy to spot this trend that watchdog groups like Ohio for Freedom now keep track of it like hurricane signs before a storm. Renner went on Joni Lamb's Table Talk to promote his book Last Days Survival Guide, which came out 5 years ago. The conversation took a surprising turn. The part that was supposed to be about internet accusations turned into a lesson in deflection very quickly. Critics pointed out that Renner was complaining about the culture of charge on social media at a good time. The episode ran as questions about Joni Lamb's quick remarriage to Doug Weiss after Marcus Lamb's death grew, and claims about how the network treated abuse cases kept coming up. The strategy isn't new. Mike Bickle, who used to be the head of IHOP KC, used the same accuser of the brethren language right before he was accused of sexual misconduct. Perry Stone used it when he was being investigated for money crimes. Now Daystar uses it against former members like Jonathan and Susie Lamb, who used religious arguments to fight Joni's new marriage. What's the joke? These scriptures warn about people who make false accusations, not people who raise worries based on proof. It's even more strange when you look at Daystar's legal history. Deals with former employees that are kept secret and NDAs that are talked about behind closed doors, while the network's shows preach radical openness. They'll film themselves giving cars to strangers, but they won't say where the money really goes, said a former director. Daystar often raises money for good causes in Israel, which is admirable, but critics wonder why the network doesn't talk about problems in the United States, like the victims of wildfires in California and floods in North Carolina. Commentator James White asks, "Where's the telethon for them?" The reason that isn't said may be in the types of donors. When there is an international crisis, it doesn't make people question who is responsible in their own country. This wall against investigation is breaking down. IHOP KC survivors led the effort in Missouri to make NDAs illegal in cases of abuse. This has led to similar efforts to target religious media giants. Institutions protect systems. Survivors protect people, Tammy Woods, a tipster, told the Roy's Report. Rachel's hands were shaking as she typed her exit letter. There were differences between what was shown on TV and what really happened after 7 years as a Daystar director. When she asked for proof that church funds were being used for personal family trips, her boss brought up Revelation 12:10, which talks about the accuser of the brethren. It was clear what she was being told. Wondering about things made her work for Satan. This spiritual gaslighting, in which real worries are twisted into attacks from evil spirits, has become the last resort for religious groups that are being looked at closely. Former workers say they were in a psychological bind. They had to keep quiet about wrongdoing or risk being called a Jezebel spirit who ruined God's work. As a result, a society where abusive behavior is accepted because it comes from a belief in divine power. The content on Daystar is a well-thought-out paradox. On radio, they use big gifts to encourage people to be radically generous. Off-air, several sources say that execs scold employees for small costs while accepting six-figure budgets for interior design work on Lamb family homes. This is an example of a troubling trend in Christian media. The gospel of wealth is used as a smokescreen for people to make money for themselves. Ministries that keep an eye on finances have noticed some strange trends. For example, Daystar's Build the Kingdom efforts have happened at the same time that leaders buy expensive homes. When reporters ask, they are told something spiritually equivalent to none of your business. Do not touch God's chosen one. The story of the Lamb family shows how favoritism taints faith groups. Analysts thought that when Marcus Lamb died in 2021, there would be a leadership change that would represent the network's world reach. Instead, power stayed in the family, even though Jonathan Lamb didn't get along with his mother's new marriage. Insiders say it's like a royal court, and leaders who aren't family members have to deal with unspoken loyalty tests. People who used to be department heads said they had to sign a strange oath that said, "I recognize the Lamb family as the spiritual covering God appointed for this ministry." Refusal meant firing right away without a reason. Such requests make it hard to tell the difference between religious obedience and cult-like control. The most damaging proof is in Daystar's paper record. Since 2015, court records show at least 12 private settlements with former workers. All of them had strong agreements not to talk about the deals. There are eerie links between these papers. Legal experts say this is a lot like the abuse crisis in the Catholic Church, but with words used by evangelicals. The same strategies are still used, but they are now called spiritual battle against accusers of the brethren. This isn't an argument about theology, it's a direct confrontation over how religious groups handle criticism, disagreement, and claims of wrongdoing. The network has to decide whether to keep calling critics demons or follow the Bible teachings of honesty and turning away from sin which it preaches on air. There are a lot of similarities between this and other failed faith institutions. The way Daystar has responded to accusations is similar to how the Catholic Church handled abuse issues, but he uses more religious language. People who have been victims say that they were mentally gaslighted with Bible texts about not touching God's chosen ones. Legal settlements are wrapped in church language, and non-disclosure agreements are sold as a way to make peace with God. Misconduct with money is called accounting irregularities, and people who blow the whistle are called spiritual division. For Christian media, this problem comes at a very important time. Younger Christians who have access to technology and are wary of authoritarian systems want new rules for who is responsible for what. They are no longer happy with acting religiously to hide problems in the system. The #Church2 movement and watchdog groups like the Roy's Report have made it possible for the truth to get past the usual barriers. The leaders of Daystar have to pick one of two possible paths now. Doubling down on current methods as a way to protect institutions risks making them less relevant faster. Young people who value honesty over showmanship will see these networks more and more as remnants of a discarded religion-industrial complex. The road of repentance that changes things. This would need more than just decorative changes. It calls for breaking down processes that put the organization ahead of people. If someone truly repents, they would have to openly investigate what happened, change how they run their government, and pay back more than what the law requires. Things are at stake more than ever. In this day and age of digital permanence where every lecture and scandal goes on forever online, religious groups can't just control stories through TV airtime. Daystar's answer will either make it a leader in a new age of responsible ministry or a lesson in what can go wrong when groups put their own survival ahead of God's will. This isn't just about what will happen to Daystar. It's about whether or not evangelical media can get past its present lack of trust. What the network does next will show if it knows that in today's world the most powerful evidence isn't a well-made show but the courage to live by its beliefs. It's impossible to deny the similarities to past system mistakes. Settlements that are kept secret with NDAs. Personality issues were changed from complaints, payments that were called compassion gifts instead of compensation. This spiritualized blocking of justice keeps power structures in place while victims are forced to stay silent. But the digital age has changed this plan. Whistleblowers can use social media to get their message out without being controlled by institutions. Watchdog groups like the Roy's Report and movements led by survivors like Church 2 are showing how the system is broken right now. Daystar may still have cameras rolling, but the crowd is no longer locked up. They are closely looking at. Tomorrow will depend on how well Daystar understands this change. Will it stick to old ineffective ways of controlling things or start a new age of openness? The answer will show whether it stays a useful mission or turns into another example of how Christian media is losing its power. Reform that really works needs more than just well-written words. It calls for breaking down systems that put the life of institutions ahead of people. The time is running out. Younger Christians are more and more likely to connect these kinds of networks with deception instead of hope. Truth is coming to light, and Daystar has to decide, will it be known for continuing to abuse power or for breaking the cycle in a very bad way. Its impact will depend on the decision.